Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Greetings from Durban, South Africa. I'm going to give you some insight into the development work that we're doing here on the east coast of KwaZulu-Natal, which is the province we work in. My name is Menaka Padiachi, and I head up an organization called Operation Upgrade of South Africa. We're a not-for-profit, non-government organization that relies totally on private sector funding and charitable organizations for us to undertake our work. The focus of our work in Durban and in KwaZulu-Natal has shifted, whereas in the past 35 years we focused on addressing the problems of illiteracy. More recently, what we've found is that people's need is not only for literacy, but also for opportunities to earn an income, opportunities to actually sell their wares in order to supplement the current grant income that impoverished people do qualify for in South Africa. And in all the communities that we work with, 98% of the participants in our programs are all women, single parent households, or where the primary caregiver is a woman who is illiterate and who is sustained from month to month with a government grant of some 900. And so the challenge in South Africa is not just illiteracy, but it is poverty and unemployment. But there is also another aspect, and that is the poverty of ignorance. And so our approach to development has changed. We've moved from purely single-focus illiteracy to a multi-pronged approach to facilitate sustainable development in vulnerable communities. So what I'm going to do now is take you through a presentation of our work in the community in each of these 4 strands. Thank you. So just to go over who we are, as I said, we're a not-for-profit, non-government organization. Our focus at the moment, moving forward, is integrated community development within vulnerable communities in KwaZulu-Natal. We work mainly in semi-rural and rural communities, though we've recently had requests from people living within Durban, within the informal settlements, where poverty also is quite high. Just a few ideas about where we work. We've worked really right up on the northern border with Mozambique. We've worked also in Port Shepstone, as you know. We also work in Klaarwater and Damat, which is to the west of Durban, and in Amandawe, a settlement, a village to the south of Durban and east of Scottsboro, which is on the Natal South Coast. So what is our purpose? Our purpose is improved monthly income. I said earlier on it wasn't sufficient for people to learn just to read and write, because that would not put food on the table. And with poverty so high in South Africa and unemployment in some areas, especially rural areas, standing at about 36%, we have large numbers of people dependent on government grant incomes for their survival. And this is about 900 Rand a month, on which they have to support families of 5 or 6, as well as extended families. So improving monthly income for people impoverished and unemployed and illiterate is the goal of our work in communities. The second aspect is food security. The World Health Organization issued a study in which they said that 50% of people in sub-Saharan Africa do not have access to food. Now that's quite high. 50% do not have access to food. The issue is not that South Africa doesn't have sufficient food, but that people cannot buy the food. They cannot purchase the food. And so poverty in the vulnerable communities that we work within is about accessing food. So we run a project for food security. We facilitate the development of community food gardens so people can reap fresh, nutritious vegetables which they can add to their diet and hopefully sell the surplus to generate an income. The third aspect, which many people will see as the primary focus of the work that we do in communities, is of course functional literacy. Now, functional literacy is the ability to interact with the literal world, to be able to read newspapers, the ability to fill in forms, the ability to write letters to the school regarding your child's progress, the ability to read clinic notices, informing the community of various campaigns that are currently running in the community. So I'll come back to this a little later. And finally, healthy lifestyle choices. This is the fourth strand of our work. I'd like to move now to agricultural production. Food gardens for food security. What we found is tunnel production actually increases the level of production. And we're finding that communities that erect tunnels are able to generate up to 3,000 to 5,000 rand per month on the sale of vegetables from tunnels. Although tunnels are not the only type of work we do, increasingly certain communities are asking for tunnels so that they can increase the production. And here we have some of the community members erecting the tunnel, and this is a picture of a community food garden. And when I say it's a community food garden, every member of the learning group who participates in a literacy group has his or her own bed. And so if there are 18 in a learning group, then 18 members actually cultivate their own plot in a community garden. And we've been quite impressed with the production of cabbages, lettuce, brinjals, carrots, and various other foodstuffs in order to supplement the daily diet of them and their families, as well as to be able to sell the surplus in the local communities. I would like to add later on how we want to move community gardens to small-scale agriculture. Here's another example. This is a new project we're starting just north of Tongaat on the coast. We undertake 3-day agricultural training, and you will notice in the distance the fences to keep out the goats and to keep out the cows, which tend to destroy all the vegetables. During the training, the community themselves, together with their children and families, put up the fencing. The fencing is covered by donations from organizations. In this case, it's an Oxfam project, so Oxfam covered the costs of fencing. Working in Scottsboro and Amendawe, that's a project funded by Rotary. Rotary would cover the cost of fencing in that area. So here we are, we have a community already having set up its beds. Seedlings have been planted. That's James, our agriculture extension officer, walking along. And here, a few months later, members of the community are reaping rich rewards in terms of beetroot, in terms of tomatoes, spinach, and various other vegetables which they add to their diet. One of the gardens that I visited recently, members told me that they haven't bought vegetables for an entire year. So that particular learning group consumes all of its vegetables and doesn't sell any. They are interested in expanding their community gardens to a new area where they can actually sell the surplus to supplement their grant income. I'd like to just talk about the skills training that we do with communities. In addition to the agri training, we train members of the community in various skills, primarily craft skills. This is again an opportunity for community members to start to make crafts and to sell them in order to supplement their income. Not only in the community but to the wider market. And the communities have produced some lovely stuff. The training covered leatherwork. The communities have produced beautiful belts and bags. They've also started to make chair backs as a result of their crocheting skills. They are also now taking orders for beaded traditional wear. And in KwaZulu-Natal, these items tend to sell very well because of the traditional gatherings that happen 3 times a year. And finally, raffia shoes and crocheted hats and scarves. We've had situations where individuals have sold up to 3,000 rands worth of craft goods to communities on the south coast. People have been quite ingenious in being innovative and using the skills that they've gained to make things that we had not considered. Here we've got community members actually showing off their tray cloths. Here again we have another member from the community engaged in leather work. We recently had an order from the United States for 20 leather belts. Admittedly, Operation Upgrade needs to get its pricing worked out because I think we sold it rather cheaply. Here are 2 community members showing off their leather bags which they've produced. We've recently had a request for some information from one of the larger companies in South Africa called Transnet to produce the shoulder bags that the train drivers use to carry all their tools. So we're looking into that and setting up a cooperative of all the leather workers across KZN so that we can actually meet the demand for about 1,000 of these bags. Here we are having the crocheted, have a look at the crocheted work. We've got bags, we've got warm, lovely caps for winter, we've got lovely bedroom slippers, and these are the community members showing off their wares that they have produced. Most of these are sold in the community. Now, taking agricultural production together with craft sales, we've now started to consolidate these activities into business enterprises. So Operation Upgrade has started to provide business skills training in our literacy classes, how to write up a budget, how to plan for your initiative, how to improve the quality of your crafts and ongoing vegetable production. And Operation Upgrade is assisting with accessing markets. It's an ongoing task for us to look at new opportunities to market the goods. Finally, what we've done in this past year is registered each group as a cooperative. It's something that government has promoted in South Africa as a solution to unemployment in South Africa, especially in rural and semi-rural areas. And thus the promotion of cooperatives by government is going to assist, I hope, the cooperatives that we've set up. For us, it means that we can take communities that are inactive to a level of economic activity, producing goods, and that is vegetables as well as crafts, and hand over to government, which provides further training, support and development for small and medium-sized enterprise development. And this is a marvelous achievement, I believe, where you have communities inactive, but after 2 years being very productive and interested in income generation. Finally, I would like to talk a little bit about our initiatives to raise awareness about issues that communities in South Africa face on a daily basis. What we do find is that communities in rural and semi-rural areas lack the information to make choices, healthy lifestyle choices, to ensure that their families are healthy. And therefore, we conduct community dialogues, not personally. We have partnerships with the professionals who come in and talk about HIV and AIDS, TB awareness, the spread of STIs, waterborne diseases and diarrhea. Children are suffering, some are dying because parents do not know what has caused the diarrhea. So education and information about what causes diarrhea and how you treat diarrhea is very necessary. We are very aware in South Africa that gender violence, violence against women, violence against children, is a huge problem. And we bring in the experts to conduct these community dialogues on human rights and who you could turn to and what people's rights are, what children's rights are, and what women's rights are all about. And what we've found is an increasing consciousness amongst the community of what is acceptable and what is not acceptable, what is punishable and what is criminal and what is not. And it's a general raising of awareness and consciousness about healthy lifestyles and making healthy lifestyle choices. We also cover the issue of water, sanitation and health, and this is covered by the Department of Health as well, so we invite them to come along. And here is an example of the Commission for Gender Equality, whom we invite to conduct talks with the community. And here's a typical community dialogue where people ask questions. Recently we had a mother who said she didn't understand that hitting her child to the extent that the child suffered badly was not acceptable in the new constitution of South Africa. And she learned that there are other ways to discipline her child than capital punishment. Finally, our core business and what we started off with is functional literacy and numeracy, the ability to read and write. We have programs that we implement in the community, taking people up to a level of functional literacy, and I've covered that in my opening statement. This allows people to develop budgets and business plans for how they're going to increase their income. And I've covered this previously, that people will be able to interact with the literal world. But just to point out, clinic records, grant applications, school reports, and many community members have stated to us that one of the things that they enjoy now doing, or they enjoy doing now, is read the Bible. And that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to read and write so they can read the Bible. This is a typical training taking place in our offices here in Durban. And these are some of the educators. There's a minimum requirement to be an educator, and that is you must have a school leaving certificate. Thereafter, we provide the training. All the educators get a monthly stipend. They're unemployed, and therefore here's an opportunity for income, for employment through Operation Upgrade. The educators also act as development workers because they're the people who lead the agricultural production. They're the people who lead the craft skills training, who run the literacy classes, and they in turn become a source of information and support to the entire community. And here are some of our learners in class, and we have a traditional healer here with a red cap, who cannot read and write. And you'll notice the young lady to the left being quite young, and you wonder, well, what is a young lady doing in class? Well, children drop out of school. And as we say, you don't use it, you lose it. And so we're increasingly finding many young people joining our class, learning to read and write in order to communicate. Where they're children sometimes come to class as well. Another young lady who participates in our level 1 functional literacy class, Albert Mchunu, an older man wanting to learn to read and write. And here, a much younger group in a new project that we started north of Durban. And I was taken aback by the age of the participants. It's unemployed youth, impoverished, and illiterate. And so one asks, what future do they have? Well, an answer would be is that they could get engaged in farming. And these are brightly dressed ladies participating in the graduation ceremony. And on the left, the gentleman there is a Dr. Tabete, who is the Nduna, who is the leader of a local community, and he was our guest of honor together with his wife. Just to show you finally that in the Ndwetwe project, as with all other projects, we engage in a planning session internally. We do a timeline. We need to know when we're going to sow. We need to know when we're going to reap. Because we're governed by the climate here in South Africa, and most of our gardens are outside. And so this is just a timeline of our work. Supportive links: the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Trade and Industry, the Department of Health, and all these other organizations work with us in delivering the integrated community development projects that Operation Upgrade is engaged in. All we require from communities is their blessings. People unemployed who meet the criterion for educators. Identify the people who will participate in the program, 15 to 18 people in each group. Provide land for the food gardens, the venue for the classes, and so forth. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope the presentation gave you some insight into our integrated community development work that we do here in South Africa. And like any organization, we depend on your support, and we hope that we can look forward to receiving your support to continue this good work with communities. Thank you very much.